You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV from Toronto, Ontario. I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today, a conversation with Michelle Singh, Executive Director of an organisation called Faith and the Common Good, about a Greening Canadian Mosques project. But first, some news headlines. Land and ferry border between Canada and United States to open in November. Peel Board of Education to implement anti-Islamophobia training for staff members. Do not consume order issued by the city of Iqaluit for their drinking water. People aged 60 and older should not take aspirin. Gunfire kills 6, wounds 30 at Beirut protest. And now the details. After a long wait, the land and ferry border between the United States and Canada is set to open for fully vaccinated and non-essential travellers. Although a date has not been specified, the border is set to open in early November. Proof of vaccination must be shown in addition to a negative COVID test completed 72 hours before crossing the border. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland echoes the advice of top doctors Theresa Tam and Eileen de Villa, saying that travellers must proceed with caution while crossing the border. In an unprecedented move, the Peel Board of Education in Ontario will implement an anti-Islamophobia program. Peel School Board trustee Noka Dakrub has formulated the program after years of working with the board and experiencing the effects of Islamophobia and hatred firsthand. The program calls for mandatory training for Peel Board staff to make the school environment more inclusive for all. Dakrub believes that education is the key to raising awareness and changing the world, starting with this program in Ontario. The city of Iqaluit, the capital city of Nunavut, announced a do not consume advisory for its citizens after emergency meeting on Tuesday. The advisory follows multiple complaints of strange odors coming from the water. After an emergency investigation, it was discovered that petroleum hydrocarbons had contaminated the drinking water. The city has declared a state of emergency and is receiving aid from the territorial government. Additional testing for contamination will take a few days. Until then, residents are asked to boil and preserve their water. The U.S. Preventative Services Task Force said Tuesday that people aged 60 and older should not take aspirin for heart disease and stroke prevention. The independent panel of experts warned aspirin use can cause harm besides lowering the chances of a first heart attack or stroke. The most serious potential danger is bleeding in the stomach, intestines, and brain. About 1 in 3 deaths stem from heart disease and stroke in the US. The task force said people between the ages of 40 and 59 who are at higher risk for cardiovascular disease should consult with doctors on whether to start taking aspirin. Gunfire killed 4 people and wounded 30 at a Beirut rally organized by the Shia Hezbollah and Amal movements in Lebanon on Thursday. Demonstrators were demanding the dismissal of the lead judge into last year's port blast, which killed 200 people. Lebanese television broadcast images of men carrying rifles and heavy weaponry. Lebanon is in the throes of one of the worst economic depressions since the mid-19th century, according to the World Bank. Inflation and poverty rates have skyrocketed in the past 2 years, and basic goods are often hard to come by. That's it for the news. And now we turn to our interview with Michelle Singh about Greening Canadian Mosques. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Now, in September, the Olivetree Foundation, which is a Canadian Muslim philanthropic foundation, announced that they'd given a grant jointly to you, your organization, Faith and the Common Good, and another organization called Enviro Muslims. We wanted to talk to you about the grant, which I believe was something to do with greening mosques. Can you please tell us about the project and the grant?
Yes, well, we are delighted to have received, this is actually the second grant that we have received from the Olivetree Foundation for this project. The project is Greening Canadian Mosques, and we're doing it in partnership, as you said, with Enviro Muslims. Our intention is to develop tools and resources to enable mosques across the country to do things like reduce their emissions, implement better resources for dealing with waste and water, green their grounds, programs such as those.
So you said it's the second in a grant from the Olivetree Foundation. Can you just very, very briefly, in a few seconds, tell us what the first one was about? I'm assuming this one builds on something that had come before.
This particular grant, actually, Olivetree has been supporting Faith in the Common Good with grants since 2014. We have about, I think, a total of 4 grants from them. These last 2 grants have been for the Greening Canadian Mosques program. The phase prior to this, we were able to develop a toolkit and communications resources in 5 or 6 languages. In this phase, we are engaging more in the mosque communities in a phase that we're calling climate conversations.
So pretend I'm a mosque administration person. How would I be engaging with you? How are you reaching out to the mosques across Canada?
For this phase, we're going to be engaging what we're calling Greening Canadian Mosque ambassadors. So these will be primarily students from universities and colleges across the country who are going to be championing this project and engaging directly with mosque leaders and community members. We have a series of webinars that are planned for 2022, beginning in January. And the ambassadors are going to engage within their community and invite them to these webinars to look at everything from success secondary students across Canada, specifically in Muslim student associations, to engage in climate action work.
So if I hear you, if I understood what you were saying, you'll find a student who will reach out to their local mosque and invite that person from the local mosque to the webinar to learn about how to implement greening and sustainability of that mosque.
Yes, at a high level, that is what we're doing. What we found in the research that we did in the previous phase was that 98.5% of the Canadian Muslims surveyed agreed that mosques have an important role to play in inspiring the Muslim community to care for nature. So this next phase that we're entering into is in response to that.
So it's sort of trying to do like a bottom-up approach. The community wants you guys, the mosque leadership, to do this and this and this.
Yes, so we're actually doing it from both sides. We were able to present to the Canadian Council of Imams, Enviro Muslims was able to present to the Canadian Council of Imams so that we could introduce them to the Greening Canadian Mosque program. So we are working for both sides, working with the leadership and also working with the community.
Sometimes there's resistance to climate change, especially in the workforce, because it's said to cost money. Is there budgetary considerations that might make an administration hesitant to move forward with this?
Well, the great thing about the way that the toolkit is designed is that it gives you options from no cost to sort of low cost, medium cost, high cost. And it guides you through what you're able to do with the resources you currently have available within your mosque.
It seems, obviously it's a wonderful program, maybe a little bit abstract to the audience. Is there any way you could make it concrete for us? What would it look like to a worshipper on a daily basis when they go into the mosque? How is it going to look different?
Well, it's everything from, one of the things that's shared in the toolkit are success stories. So for example, at Jaffrey in Richmond Hill, they were able to reduce their water, their waste in significant ways by using things like, by asking people to do things such as bringing a water bottle. They use trays during Ramadan, recyclable trays during Ramadan. They planted gardens. So in some communities, they may plant pollinator gardens or food gardens or even meditation gardens. So it's a wide variety of initiatives. In some communities, they are replacing things like light bulbs. They're looking at where they're losing heat. The windows and the doors need to be caulked, or in some places replaced. It really depends on the resources that the community has available.
That's helpful. Now, I understand that the project hasn't started yet in this phase, so I can't ask you what the participants are telling you.
No, not quite yet. We're in the process of finalizing the work plan, reaching out, designing the ambassador program so that we can start advertising that and hiring ambassadors. We are looking at having an ambassador per province, more or less. We'll probably have a couple in Ontario, as this is such a large province. And so that's the work that we're currently doing, is the background work to get us moving.
So if there's anyone watching, a student who's interested in applying, how will they find the application form?
We will be posting it through social media on both Faith Common Good's social media channels, as well as Enviro Muslims. If anybody wants more information about the program itself, how their mosque can sign up, how they can get these free tools that are available in 6 different languages, they can go to the faithcommongood.org website.
Well, that's helpful. Now, why is something like this, Greening Canadian Mosques, important to your organization, which is called Faith in the Common Good?
Well, we're an interfaith national network. We have been working with mosques across the country on various other types of projects, such as energy benchmarking. We had mosques that looked at the costs of things like water, lighting, and so forth. And we were able to do some benchmarking and help them improve their rates and lower their costs and so forth. This is important because I think that, just about everybody knows that we are in a climate emergency right now. And based on the research that we did in the previous phase, honestly, it was 100% of community members that said they want to see their mosque doing something, taking action as it relates to the climate crisis. So we are responding to that.
And do you think it's enough, these kinds of measures?
I think it's a start. I think it's education, it's advocacy, it's action, however we can engage people. And different people have different levels of engagement that they're interested in. So I think what's important about the kinds of tools and the toolkit that we're offering is that you have the opportunity to engage at the level that you're comfortable with. One of the things we're hoping as well is that people, as they're educated within the mosque, will take some of those behaviors home. We're certainly seeing that with the youth who are saying, we want to see these changes happening in our mosque, and we want to educate our community, and we want to be able to take that knowledge home as well.
Well, it really sounds like a wonderful project and very important. So we commend you on the work that you're doing, and we wish the project well. Thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for your time, Kathy.
You're welcome. That was Michelle Singh, Executive Director of Faith in the Common Good, about the Greening Canadian Mosque project. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay safe and God bless.